What is up everybody, Blades for here, and today for you guys another video of Persona 5X. Today's video guys, we're going to be going ahead and doing the unit review for the girl Matoi here, who was the second character that really influenced on technicals. Now she is a debuffer character, so it's going to be kind of interesting to see her kit really, and I feel like a lot of you guys are really going to enjoy it. So if you guys like videos like these, be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. It really does help me out in the long run. We're going to go ahead and dive right into the video here. So when it comes down to the girl Matoi, as I did say before, she is one of the few characters that finally influenced more of the technical side of things. The first character that we got that from was at least the Rin Lion Dance character, and this is pretty much the second character to be one of her main people on her team. Now the good part about this character is she's not really bound to that team. In fact, she can do technicals on her own, and she really doesn't need to have Rin Lion Dance by her side, seeing that she's a debuffer at the end of the day. The good part about this as well is she's the best AoE debuffer that we have to date. In fact, she goes hand in hand with the girl Howler. Even though Howler does have an AoE debuff as well, she definitely supersedes that if you do have her in totality, to be honest. Howler's more of your single target debuffer, while Matoi is more of your AoE debuffer that's absolutely amazing in all aspects. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at least in her awareness and actually tell you guys so what's really worth this character and what's really not. When it does come down to at least this unit, she was one of the few units I ended up getting by luck here and only got her at A0. Now keep in mind, her A0 is far from that. If anything, she's actually really good with just her A0, though she gets more of her usefulness at her A1. Now A1 is usually always the best thing for majority characters, mainly because it adds a little bit of an extra passive on the end of it here. And the main reason that this A1 is absolutely amazing is because you're able to get her stacks, which are useful for at least doing her additional technical or like her enhanced attack at the end of the day. It gives you one of those stacks immediately, which is extinguishing power whenever you do use Echoing Tide. Now Echoing Tide is another thing that actually is inside of her kit, which in fact is the skill 1. So if you actually go ahead and use the skill 1, you immediately get an additional stack, and alongside of this, you're now making enemies have 30% crit damage taken on them. So it's pretty dang nice that you're able to do this here. It always only happens when you're utilizing an extinguishing power, which luckily for her, you will be utilizing this quite often, seeing you're going to use at least her enhanced type debuff later on. So you're getting yourself an extra debuff out there while also getting yourself an extra stack. It really does change a lot of her playstyle, especially if you are trying to get that enhanced move set really quickly. So I would suggest you guys, if you can get the A1, very well do get it, though it's not really mandatory, seeing her A0 is absolutely insane as well. So checking out at least A0, she can actually do ice technicals. With this in mind, she's able to gain at least 1 stack of extinguishing power at the start of her turn, and it can go up to a max of 4 whole stacks. If she does consume extinguishing power when using bursting waterfall, it will inflict all enemies with 1 stack of drowning, in which for every 1 stack of extinguishing power, she will be able to do drowning multiple times if it is consumed. Now drowning itself actually gives you a increase in damage taken to the enemy by 6% for 2 whole turns, and it can stack up to 4 whole times. So pretty much the more extinguishing powers that you go ahead and use up, the more of drowning you can then put on the enemy, meaning the more damage taken they'll have stacked up, which is going to be at least a good around, like, I want to say 24%. It's kind of pretty dang nice to have at least at your disposal. So if you very well can at least get this A0 or just get the character itself, it will very well so help you out. Now of course, if for my people who want to go higher than at least the A1 that I did recommend it, the only other thing that's kind of worth it is the A6. If you get the A2, you're still getting a little bit of a buff, but I think the A2 is probably the furthest I would go unless I'm planning to just max dupe this unit. Other than that, don't go any further. Just not worth it. All right, so now we went over at least the awarenesses. Let's go ahead and go over at least her skills. Now this character is one of the few characters I also have to say, she doesn't utilize her skill 2. Her skill 2 is actually very lackluster, and it's not really going to be too helpful for you, especially in the long run. The main ones that you're going to end up utilizing is the skill 3 and the skill 1 alongside with her combat skills. The main reasoning for this is because the skill 3 and skill 1 are mainly going to be allowing you to stack up what you need and have the effects for the debuffs that you need at hand. They both correlate directly with the extinguishing power little buff that you do have, in which these stacks will be helpful for either increasing your damage and also decreasing the enemy's defense, for example with at least their skill 3, or with the skill 1 utilizing the extinguishing power to then increase not only your damage but also have a base chance of inflicting freeze on the enemy. This allows it so you can have the sustainability, seeing you're taking down their attack and decreasing their defense based on the EHR that she does have. Now, of course, if you are able to have it burn, which you normally will be if you're gonna go ahead and start with Friend Lion Dance, if you have a burn on the enemy, she's actually able to dispel the burn and have something called Fading Flame here on the skill 1, which is technically treated as burn. With this in mind, it then brings out more of the technical side of things and then increases her technical mastery for 976% for whole 3 turns. All you need to know is pretty much, hey, utilizing this, you get more attack up, you have a chance to freeze, which takes their attack down, and you decrease their defense. The Fading Flame thing is more of a little bit of an additional, so you can look into that whenever you want to, but the character's pretty dang nice with just the skill 1. Now the skill 3 is where things gets a little bit confusing because there's 2 forms to this. You have Bursting Waterfall, and then of course you have Bursting Tornado. Bursting Tornado is the enhanced version of this skill, in which you will only be able to utilize once you have at least 2 whole stacks of Extinguished Power. You're usually only going to utilize it when you have 4 stacks, mainly just because it allows you to really go into it the most. Like, I think 2 stacks allows you to get one of the enhances of at least Bursting Waterfall, but for at least the Bursting Tornado, you do need to have 4 whole stacks, and they do totally different things. For example, with at least Bursting Waterfall, you are taking down the defense based on at least your EHR, and you're also using those 2 stacks. Alongside of this, you're taking down the defense in general once again whenever you do trigger this, and you're getting an ice technical based on Ice Burn, Cold Shine, which either way, one of them will actually give you an increase on damage taken on the enemy. Now, if you did have the 4 stacks of this move, it will then change to Bursting Tornado. This does something totally different. In fact, if it's upgraded, you deal even more damage, and ice damage in general to all enemies. You decrease their defense by 8.78% here instead of at least the little bit of 7.32%. And it's going to be based off your EHR even more, but then you're able to then do a ice technical, which upgrades the Ice Burn to Cold Shine, and instead of the damage taken being 9.76%, it now goes up to 11.71%, which is actually a decent jump, especially inside of a increase for the enemy, seeing that you're going to be dealing a lot more damage to them with this extra enhance. Just you do need to wait a little bit longer for it. Now, these aren't the only good things about Matoi itself. In fact, there's 2 other things that are actually amazing, and that's going to be her passives. In fact, with her at least being alive, she has at least protection here, which allows her to actually increase her damage taken by 27%. And actually, no, that is quite a little bit weird here. I think this one was, yes, okay, it was pressure. That's what it was that had this one here. And then for Shelter itself, Shelter or Protection, which I don't know why it's named Protection here. If I'm right, it's supposed to stay as Shelter, but Shelter here allows her to deal, whenever she deals this said technical, she would then give your allies at least a shield of 1050 for at least 2 whole turns. So she's pretty much this debuffer that quite literally can be a defender in some cases, and is absolutely amazing to do so. But then that makes it so the team not only has a little bit more of that damage capability, but they're also able to survive in the long run. So it made at least Matoi very, very good. Now, with this in mind, we're going to go ahead and talk about her 5-star weapon here, and is it worth it? One of the few things I can say is, in terms of worth, I mean, it does bring some nice things to have on the character, but I would definitely say it's not mandatory. This is one of the few weapons, like most other weapons inside the game here, that you can just very well use the 4-star. In most cases, I would say the 4-star is more than enough that you need here, seeing that at the end of the day, she is a debuffer. Although her 5-star does make it a little bit more worth, seeing that you're getting some EHR out of it, you can easily just go ahead and build this character for a primary EHR stat. Getting EHR stats are pretty darn high, especially if you get at least those increases. So that 36% EHR that it does give can be obtained fairly easily. But the only reason why I'm saying that this 4-star is probably more worth it than 5-star is just because we're only utilizing this character for debuffing at the end of the day. More of the ones that I kind of recommend their 5 stars are usually the attackers. So I find the 4-star more worth it, seeing at the end of the day you're getting at least your attack percent that you need for at least a hit, while you're also getting the extinguishing power buff and get some EHR out of that as well. It's 11%, but it's still more than enough to do majority of our hit, so I find the 4-star more worth it. So if you're like me and just want to of course get the 5-star and get those extra bonuses, the 5-star can technically be worth it in its own sense. But if you're like more of a person who doesn't really want to spend too much or really doesn't want to use their currency on a 5-star weapon, I would say the 5-star weapon is just not worth it. But that's mainly in my opinion. Of course, others might disagree, but I say it's not really too worth it, especially if you're just gonna rock it out with a 4-star weapon. But with that in mind, let's go ahead and showcase what this character really can do. So as usual, we're gonna go ahead and check out the bosses once again here. These bosses are all going to be able to be affected by this as usual, and you guys are going to get to see all of them. Now for Mio, or at least Matoi here, she's very interesting. She actually has a couple things going for her. Her ult looks something like this, in which we're going to go ahead, make sure it's on X2, where she takes out a little bit of a fire hose, or a fire cannon really, that you can just extinguish some fire with. Does a little bit of a blast, and then does a pose for the camera. Not gonna lie, I kind of like the ultimate. It's pretty nice. She had, of course, stunt on him at the last second, so it looks kind of cool at the end of the day. Then we have the skill 1. This is going to be one of the skills that you use a lot, where she just drops down a water ball, but then it turns into freezing ice once it hits the floor. Pretty darn cool to see, and we're going to go ahead and showcase the skill 2 afterwards. Now, if you want to go ahead and see the differences with the skill 3, I actually will be able to show that as well. But I kind of want to do the enhanced one first, because the enhanced one is where things get a little bit complicated. So we have the skill 2. This kind of seals the enemy, which you can then get an ice seal off. Not really worth doing at the end of the day, because you can't really trigger ice seals on at least bosses and on some enemies. So it's not really too useful, and it doesn't build up a stack. Now, if we go ahead and do this here, and you guys can see, we have 4 of these stacks. Our 3rd skill was then changed to Bursting Tornado, so it's no longer Bursting Waterfall. So whenever you have 4 of these stacks, it's the enhanced version. The Bursting Tornado looks something like this. Ends up riding on at least a huge wave, doing a huge tornado of course as well, and it pretty much turns the enemy into like an ice statue at that point. This is going to be triggering a nice technical, while also allowing you to get some additional little buffs off of that, or debuffs off of that as well. Now on the normal day, if you do not have, of course, Bursting Waterfall or Bursting Tornado, your thing will normally look like this, where of course it's Bursting Waterfall. Now in order to do this, you do need 2 stacks. We currently have 1, so we have to go ahead and build up this last stack real quick. So we'll go ahead and build this up to 2, and then the next time she comes around, you guys will be able to see exactly how she works with the skill 3 now. I'm going to take a little bit of damage, and oof, that actually was a lot more damage than I expected. So I guess we are going to have to restart that one, because they kind of killed off our character that we were showcasing. I wasn't expecting him to kind of focus her down, but he did kind of focus her down. But the next one that we're going to go ahead and show is just going to be the skill 3, but we're going to make sure that we at least have her 2 needed, and then be able to showcase that as well. Hopefully this time she does not get too targeted, because yeah, he wasn't too nice. He wasn't a nice guy. So once again, we're going to go ahead and use the skill 1. Let's go ahead and actually skip through all of this here, so you guys can immediately see the skill 3. I do have to say, for this character, she does help out in the sustainability type category, but of course we have to be doing her rotation correctly. On the normal stance with Bursting Waterfall, it looks something like this. Puts up ice, and that's all it does. A little bit of a water droplet more than a waterfall, but it's still pretty darn cool. So at the end of the day, this character is absolutely amazing. She definitely helps out a ton in the debuffing category, and if you are utilizing anything with AoE debuffs here, she might be the person that you really want to utilize the most. But with that in mind here, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please do smash that like button with your forehead, and consider subscribing if you are new. I do daily videos on Persona 5X, and we're only going to continue from there. Until then, everybody, peace out.